Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. It is around 3 a.m. on Sunday morning. I'm recording this because I can't sleep right now because I slept through most of Saturday and then went to sleep as normal on Sunday and woke up at like 1 a.m. and I was like, oh shit. And anyway, beyond the point. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, I'm recording this incredibly early. And you guys are probably going to be in for some rambling. If you like that sort of thing, enjoy. If you don't, deal with it, I guess. But so with that said, what I kind of want to talk about today is streaming, TV shows, and why I kind of think they're coming back at the moment. The general consensus right now is that we have 4 shows that are coming out that are really cutting edge, right? And we've had many other shows recently as well that have come out that are kind of the same. But to start with, let's talk about the 4 that are coming out right now, which is She-Hulk, Andor, Rings of Power, and House of the Dragon. Now, I can't talk too much about House of the Dragon because I have not watched Game of Thrones, which is heathen talk, I know. I apologize for that. One day I will get around to it, and I'm sure I'll have a lot to say. But for now, I can't talk about it too much, apart from the fact that I know it is very well received at the moment, and that's great, and I'm glad for that. It's always nice to know that people are getting a show that they like. But yeah, so I'll be talking mainly about the 3, but know that I am aware of House of the Dragon and I am aware of how well it's doing at the moment. So what I kind of want to say really is that I think streaming, in a sense, is coming back. I know that sounds weird to say because it never really went anywhere, but I feel like for a long time we were kind of sitting in mediocrity. We got one kind of show a year that was kind of decent, or maybe 2 or 3, but they weren't all. Some of them were obscure, and you know what I mean. Netflix very much became, for example, churning out like just any old shit to put an original on the platform. Not saying that Netflix doesn't have good stuff. Stranger Things season 4 came out recently, and Sandman as well, which is also fun. I enjoy both of those. But for every Sandman, you had something like The Witcher season 2, which I'm not even going to comment on. But yeah, so I feel like right now we're in a kind of really cool spot. I mean, especially because now, as fans of these fandoms, as fans of these IPs, these franchises. Right now, if you're watching all 3, you're essentially watching something now on a Wednesday with Andor, Thursday with She-Hulk, and Friday with Rings of Power, which is really fun. It's really nice to have a kind of a defined, I'm going to watch these this week thing, right? It's nice to have them spread out like that as well, so you can kind of enjoy your week with a nice pace of new shows. And like you can have some discourse about each across the week because of that as well. But yeah, so I think personally we're in a kind of a streaming renaissance. That might sound a bit extreme, and again, I'm not saying that it's like we've had literally nothing good for years because that's not true necessarily. But you know what I mean. But yeah, so I think it's great right now, and I think Andor and She-Hulk especially are very much pushing the boat out there. A lot of people will disagree about. There we go. There's the 3 a.m. Incomprehensibility coming in. I think some people might disagree on She-Hulk being ambitious / good because of a lot of prejudice around the show. Let's just put it that way. Same for Rings of Power on some levels, but I personally am enjoying all 3. I think they're all very, very interesting and very unique as well. You've got. So it's very high fantasy with Rings of Power, and I'm really enjoying that. I don't think we've got anything sort of that kind of high fantasy in a while now. That feels unique as well because you can churn out standard fantasy very easily. Usually by using Tolkien as shorthand, which I find hilarious. But anyway, so yeah, I think Rings of Power is really fun. I think She-Hulk is irreverent and funny and cutesy, and that's great. It's also Marvel, so I mean, fun. And Andor, the newest entry, but with 3 episodes already, so we do kind of understand. I mean, that's a good grip. That's usually the point that I say a show is good or bad after 3 episodes. So I feel like Andor is a really good example of a great start to a show. I know it's had some criticism around it being slow to start, but I mean, how do I put it? I'd agree if we were having to wait 3 weeks for those episodes, maybe. But we got them all at once, and I feel like it was edited in that way. I feel like it was kind of like they knew that they were going to change the dates, and then they decided how to edit the episodes to that. And that feels very much intentional, that these three are kind of a slow burn and finishes kind of like a movie set piece where like the ending is kind of the beginning, so to speak, for the next episode. But what I'm trying to say is that these three shows are very out there in terms of what they're doing and being different and being, unique in the market at the given point, and also all having room to breathe. Despite only being a day apart in terms of airing, they all have room to breathe in terms of their content. There's nothing too similar going on in these shows. They're all very different. You when you're in Middle Earth versus on Ferrix, for example. No, I think it's good, and I think you've got a lot of fun actor performances going on at the moment. I think you've got a lot of fun potentiality going forward. And it's nice because I feel like for a long time, there's been contests and disappointments surrounding stuff like, let's say, Obi-Wan. I liked Obi-Wan, but I know a lot of people had gripes, and not all of them are incorrect. And the same with something like Boba Fett, which I had a lot more issues with, I will admit. And even Mandalorian to an extent. Like, I don't hate Mandalorian. Season 2 was very fun. I did enjoy season 2, and I'm looking forward to season 3. But Mandalorian isn't like something that I put on a pedestal the same as other people do. Even though it's funny because I literally have Mandalorian stuff behind me. Anyway, beyond the point. What I'm trying to say is that I think Andor steps outside of the box of the Star Wars shows, and She-Hulk is doing the same. Bar WandaVision, it's the one that's took the most risks so far, so to speak. And I feel like Rings of Power is something that like is very new, right? Because I feel like Lord of the Rings media has really not existed until this. Like, I mean, obviously there's been games, etc. But Lord of the Rings really took a back seat for a lot of years, and I feel like it's nice to see it get something. And I kind of want more. I'm like, give me more. Like, I want to ingest more Lord of the Rings in a visual medium. I know, obviously, I believe it's 5 seasons they have planned or something akin to that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to the future of these shows because they're starting out quite strong, which I think, again, is something that we haven't had for a while in the same kind of vein as we are right now, with a number of good shows and a number of things to watch. I think it's nice to kind of almost be drowning in good content for a change instead of drowning in mediocrity, which I think happens a lot. And I know that's what streaming is to an extent, right? Get as many shows out as you can, as quickly as you can. I mean, that's kind of what Netflix did for a lot of years. And I feel like Marvel started to slightly go that way with some of the shows. I don't dislike any of the shows, but I don't, like, if I was to rate my Marvel projects, I don't think all of the shows would reach the heights of some of the other stuff. Like, some of them would, but I think some shows are better than some movies, but I don't think most movies. I think there's a lot of movies that are still better than most of the shows, if that makes sense. But yeah, overall, I think we're in a really strong position, show-wise, and I feel like it's interesting because that is over movies. I mean, in terms of Star Wars, for example, and by over movies, I don't mean that they're better than movies. I mean that shows seem to be succeeding better than movies at the moment. I mean, obviously, we are still coming out of a pandemic, so there's part of that to play into it. But also, I feel like Star Wars, right? Star Wars has really took a backseat on movies because they feel like their streaming shows are actually doing better for them. And I think that could have been done better. I think they could put a little bit more time or a few more episodes into some of these shows, and that's why I'm happy Andor is 12 episodes long. I mean, compared to a normal season of a show, we're actually getting sort of like it's sort of akin to what, like 4 episodes of a Marvel show, 4 seasons of a Marvel show, should I say. So like I think 24 episodes over 2 seasons is the right amount. And like I think that's because, I think, we've seen a lot of developments in TV shows recently, not recently, but over the past, I don't know, 6-7 years, something like that. A movement from 22 episodes because of like cable TV in America and that sort of thing, and like splitting that up into mid seasons because of certain things. I don't understand it fully because American TV, but and I'm from the UK, funnily enough. But yeah, so from 22 episodes, and then Netflix started to kind of originate the 12 episode format. Now we're down to kind of 6, which I don't think is an issue. I think if you've got a story to tell that can be done in 6 episodes, then do it, right? But if the story could benefit from a little bit more fleshing out to 8 episodes or to 10, or even sometimes, like for example, Daredevil is going to be 18. Now, if that makes sense, if that feels natural, that feels fun for the character, because for example, Daredevil has a lot of characters that he can kind of mesh with and interact with, and there's a lot of storylines that could go on there because you have the Hand, you have Punisher, you have Kingpin, you have Bullseye, you have Spider-Man could show up, which I don't think so, but you know what I mean, Spider-Man could show up. You have She-Hulk could show up because of the link to She-Hulk in the current show. You have Luke Cage, Jessica Jones. Did I say Punisher? I think I did, but anyway, I'll say it again. Iron Fist, Elektra. I think I said Elektra. I remember what I've said and I haven't now. But what I'm trying to say is that with Daredevil, there's a lot more potentiality for things to happen in an episode that feels more like impactful, but could also be filler-ish. Not filler full, but filler-ish, if that makes sense. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of how do I put it, experimentation going on right now, and it feels artistic. That's the thing. It doesn't feel so much corporate. I mean, there's obviously a corporate push behind it, because what corporate realizes over time and what corporations realize over time, and studios, etc., is that what actually works for them, and then they will backtrack on this eventually, by the way, but what actually works for them in the time being is to listen to fans. Because I think this kind of comes off the back of stuff like HBO Max getting a lot of its stuff cut because of Warner Brothers and their tax write-offs, etc., and like cancelling Batgirl and stuff like that. I think companies realize now that, hey, if fans don't like our stuff or don't like the decisions we make, we might be kind of effed. And so I think there's a kind of a movement at the moment, and I don't think it'll be forever. I don't think it's like a big industry change to where suddenly everything's going to be great all the time. But I think there's a shift at the moment to really trying to please fans, and I'm not in the sense of like, oh, let's hit target goals, but like let's let our creatives be creative. I think that's what I'm seeing with these shows that I've got in front of me right now. Some people will probably disagree. Some people will say they probably have no heart. I think they do. I think they have a lot of heart and a lot of intrigue and a lot of interest. And I think that's what's good about right now. I think right now creativity is on the rise. And it's very nice, because I think for a lot of years, I mean, those 2 years during COVID, we had kind of go with the flow. I think that was kind of the vibe there. Yes, things changed in terms of how we consumed media, but it didn't change in terms of how the media was being given. Do you know what I mean? Like the media itself didn't change. Our consumption of it did. Now I think it's going the other way. Our consumption is a certain way, and the media itself is trying to catch up and be more of what we need right now and what we want right now. And I think so. I think the zeitgeist, I hate to use that word, but I think it's very relevant in this point. At this point, the zeitgeist is that TV is moving right now. TV is moving rapidly into a new vein. And I'm hoping it keeps up. I mean, Mandalorian Season 3 is probably a no-brainer for being great. But we have Bad Batch coming up. We have Tales of the Jedi coming up. That's from Star Wars. Then Marvel, obviously. In fact, what are the shows from Marvel next year? Agatha, which I'm very excited for. I know a lot of people aren't excited about that, but I will refer to people not being excited about Agatha in the same way that people weren't excited about Miss Marvel and She-Hulk. Just going to say. Echo, yes, Echo, which I think, again, people are saying like, oh, no one cares. Well, I do, thank you. And the other one was Daredevil, but like I said before, Daredevil. So I think those are the 3 shows next year. I think there might even be a 4th one that I'm forgetting at this moment. But yeah, I'm very... Secret Invasion, which is going to be like, I think Secret Invasion might be like one of those MCU projects that just blows everything out of the water. I think it's going to be very fun. Very exciting. I think people are going to really enjoy it. Is Ironheart coming next year as well? Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of big, different shows coming with a lot of different vibes and a lot of like, for example, Secret Invasion is going to be different because I feel like what Secret Invasion does is it moves away from the formula of just one hero. I mean, the title itself, right? Secret Invasion is like, it's one of the few MCU projects that don't have like a hero or a team name as the movie, the kind of the project name. I can't even think of any others that don't actually. Is Secret Invasion the only one? Well, What If kind of counts, I suppose. So that's like, but like basically most of the shows, you know, stick to the format of we're going to follow this one character. Whereas like, even though Secret Invasion is Nick Fury's show essentially, it's moving into this vein of like, hey, other people can be interesting in the same show as this one person, which I feel is something that has been critiqued a lot in Marvel for years, not just with the streaming stuff, but generally like, oh, you know, Iron Man's fighting this guy in the middle of, you know, New York. Why isn't Captain America helping? Why isn't Black Widow helping? Or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, there's this thing of like, why aren't these other characters coming into play? And I get it, it makes sense. But you know, obviously, movies are as movies do, and you can't really undercut. Like, you could easily undercut every movie by having Doctor Strange show up and finishing off the villain, for example. But that's not fun, right? So you have to suspend disbelief to an extent. But I think sometimes it can be fun to kind of go, oh, well, actually, we will do that. We will have, like, for example, War Machine and Everett Ross and you know, new characters and Nick Fury and Maria Hill all show up in the same show, which essentially is characters from Avengers, Black Panther, Ben Mendelsohn as well, so Captain Marvel, and then like Iron Man himself. Like there's a lot of characters coming into this that is like this feels like a true sense of what Marvel is or should be, in the vein of an Avengers movie or in the vein of just connectivity in general. It feels very much like Iron Man 2 when Black Widow came into the movie. That was like, that's what people liked about Iron Man 2 and you know, the Coulson and all that type of stuff. So I think that's what I'm glad that Marvel is getting back to. In terms of Lord of the Rings, obviously there's not really anything in the works right now, I don't believe, apart from the show, Rings of Power. But I think there's potential there, depending on how it goes. They could do some spin-offs or some kind of alternate extra content. I mean, for example, what you're seeing with The Witcher right now is that The Witcher is getting a new show, Witcher Blood Origin, in December of this year, and then the third season, of Witcher is releasing in summer 2023. Now, I'll admit, Witcher kind of fell off with me for season 2. I will watch season 3 and I will watch Blood Origin as well, but I don't have the same hope as I do with these shows, which is again testament to the fact that I don't think all of this is changing overnight, and I don't think all of this will change and stay changed. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that The Witcher very much went, okay, we can do another show here, and we can do an anime like movie, and like, you know, we'll do these things, and we'll see if they kind of hit the mark. And I think that's what I think other franchises are now catching up on that haven't been doing it for a while. You know, Lord of the Rings is one of them. And I feel like now, obviously, we're getting it with Game of Thrones as well, which, again, I've not watched yet, but, you know, we have got a spin-off now with House of the Dragon. So what I'm trying to say, I think, is that I think streaming is back on the uptick, which is weird to say because we had it for 2 years where pretty much everyone was streaming stuff at home, and, you know, for example, people were watching loads of Tiger King and stuff like that. But I think this is different. I think this isn't like, I don't mean streaming on the uptick in terms of numbers. I don't mean streaming on the uptick in terms of like consumption. I do mean in terms of the creativity of streaming and how we're viewing streaming from an artistic point of view. I do think that's changing. I think because it's such a new thing, right? Like, apart from Netflix, most of these places have kind of jumped up in the past however many years. For example, Paramount Plus with their Star Trek shows, that's new, relatively speaking. And, you know, HBO Max is only a few years old, I think, right? So, like, it's this thing of, like, I think these places have finally got their groove, so to speak. Like, they're doing they're on their Netflix, their original Netflix, like when Netflix was doing, I keep saying Netflix, so I'm sorry about that. Netflix. Like kind of at the point where Netflix was doing these again, the Marvel shows, but it was also doing stuff like I can't even remember off the top of my head, but you know what I mean. There was a lot of stuff to watch on Netflix and consume and enjoy, and people were talking about like Stranger Things and all that type of stuff. So I feel like we're at that point with the other platforms now. The other platforms are like, we have established ourselves. Let's play it a little bit more risky. Let's do a few more fun things. And I like for example, Werewolf by Night is a great example of this. A direct-to-TV MCU movie, essentially, right? Like it's an hour long, so it's not any longer than one of the episodes of a show. But like it's a direct-to-TV MCU movie, which is kind of funny. It's kind of very like it's very true to what it is though as well. Like as an 80s kind of, not an 80s, but like a old horror movie. I don't know why I said 80s. Maybe it is 80s. I don't know, but you know what I mean. It's very that horror movie, and like. So it's kind of funny. I almost wish, and I know they can't, but I almost wish they did release it in like on a VHS. I think that would be hilarious. Obviously they won't, but that would be kind of funny because I feel like that's kind of what it is, right? It's kind of like almost, it's got that vibe to it when you watch the trailer. But what I'm trying to say is that they're pushing the board out and they're doing different things, and we now have a direct-to-TV MCU movie coming out in not long actually. It's like 2 weeks. Very exciting. I mean, that kind of just, it's springing out of nowhere and it's fun. I want them to try new things. I want them to try pushing the boundaries because this is the thing. And this is what I think a lot of people need to remember. People have complained about the MCU being samey for years, and now it's not being. And I think the same is true of Andor and Star Wars. And I think the same is true of a lot of franchises right now. They're trying not to be samey anymore. And you kind of need to let them go with it. Like, I'm not saying you need to like it, but you kind of need to let them go with it. Because if you just say, like, cancel this, stop this, don't do it anymore, don't make a season 2, you're cutting out creativity and the chance of creativity because you don't like something instantly. And even me, who doesn't like stuff, like, for example, I'm not happy with the Andor use of original, like, of real world swearing because I feel like it takes me out of the show. Like when one of the corporal guys says, "Shit, we're surrounded," or "Shit, they're behind us," or something. I forget the line, but it passed me by, admittedly, when I was watching the show. But people made me aware of it afterwards, and I was like, "Oh, actually, wow." So I don't really have too much to complain because it kind of passed me by. I didn't take me out of the show in reality in the moment, but I like the use of fictional swears because it makes it more Star Wars, right? We're not dealing with something like I'm trying to think of like a franchise, but there's certain franchises where it's sci-fi, but it's still grounded in Earth and grounded in like that kind of like you can say shit and frick and I was going to say fuck, but I don't know why I said frick instead. See, this is 3 a.m. brain, half 3 brain now, but you know what I mean. Yeah, it's that thing of like I don't personally like it. I like your Carabasts and your Poodoos and your I don't like Dank Farrik. I will admit Dank Farrik or Ferrick or whatever it is, the Mando one I don't like. But like there are fun, Sleemore, that type of stuff. There's fun Star Wars swears, and I feel like it's better to use those than use real world ones. Like I mean, there's some that kind of pass by because like I have a very weird thing about Star Wars in terms of that vein anyway, because I don't even like for example, there's a character called Tim in this show, and I hate that. I hate normal names in Star Wars, and you guys are all going to say, I know it happens every time. What about Luke? And I'm like, yes, okay, Luke is a normal name in Star Wars, but Luke is like an exception to the rule, not the rule. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Qui-Gon Jinn, Count Dooku, Yoda, Mace Windu, Aayla Secura, Adi Gallia, Savage Opress. Like, you really got to put someone called Tim next to someone called Savage Opress. Like, I'm not saying they're in the same scene, but like, it's very weird to have such a like you have. I don't know. Again, Owen, Lars, and so there is exceptions. But what I'm saying is like having a guy called Tim next to like literally freaking Cassian Andor or Marva or like Bix. Like there's actually a couple called Tim and Bix. It's a thing that gets them. Like the only reason Tim passes just slightly is because it has a double M, so it's like Tim. It's like it's less bad, but like I hear Tim and I just freaking think of A Christmas Carol. I know it sounds stupid, but like imagine if there was a guy called Bob in the Star Wars universe. Like, how would you deal with that? That doesn't seem right. Like, imagine like someone like Bob meeting Darth Vader. Like Bob and Darth Vader. It's like it's weird, right? Or Fred, like Fred and like Padme Amidala. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. Like the names are too disparate. I mean, obviously, yes, it could happen in real life, and but like, let me have my fiction with fictional names, with weird kind of pronunciations and all that type of stuff. Like, you really gonna have someone like Orson Krennic and then John, like, you know what I mean? Like, anyway, I have ranted about names for Star Wars now, which is entirely not my topic, and in fact, entirely beyond the point of everything that I was trying to say. What I'm trying to say is there's immersion in shows, and I think sometimes they go beyond it. But anyway, now that I've had my side tangent for whatever reason, I don't even know how we got onto that. That again, 3 a.m. brain. I kind of want to wrap up and just say I am really excited with where the shows are going at the moment. Really excited with Star Wars going forward, Marvel going forward, Rings of Power going forward, which is something I had it on my radar, but I didn't have it on my radar. If that makes sense. Like, it was on the periphery of the radar. And then obviously eventually one day when I get through Game of Thrones to watch House of the Dragon. But yeah, there's been a lot of good shows recently. Stranger Things, Sandman. I'm actually watching Breaking Bad now. I don't know why I did that. Fuck you guys, I guess. I put my middle finger up for those listening on wherever you listen on, I guess. I'm trying to think of the places now. Like Apple, Spotify, Audible, wherever you listen. I lost my point now. I've lost my point. Yes, there's a lot of good shows that I've started Breaking Bad, which is fun because that's like literally very old. And then obviously there's Better Call Saul, which is finished on Netflix as well. But I don't know if is that like on another platform or another TV show or like on a channel or something, and it's put on Netflix as well. I don't remember how that works. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of good TV right now. I've talked about that and said that like a number of times in this now, and I feel like maybe you kind of get the point. And so now that my 3 a.m. nearing to 4 a.m. brain is winding down, I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for your support of the channel continuously, the podcast continuously. And see you next time, guys. Thanks for listening, /watching, / whatever you're doing. Thanks, guys.